I think a false sense of being elite is actually a major root cause as to why we still see such a large chunk of Canadians still willing to cast a ballot for the Liberals and the NDP in the next election. Like, don't get me wrong, the Conservatives are still going to smash them in 2025. Some polls are putting the Conservatives up ahead of the Liberals by 21%. But without fail, in the comment section of all the videos where I talk about polling, there are some people saying, I can't believe the Liberals and the NDP still have like 23% or 21%, like depending on the poll. Like, here's an example. And yes, that is kind of frustrating that there are still that many people who don't seem to notice that the Liberals and the NDP's policies have failed over the last 9 years. But I don't think that's the point for why so many people are still voting for them. I think a lot of people, and this is not the majority of the parties, but there's a hardcore base to both the Liberals and the NDP who support those parties because it is the degreed person's party. It is the intellectual choice. It is the educated person's choice. And they believe that they are supposed to vote Liberal to signify the fact that they're not some simplistic rube who is following the pure Polyev common sense agenda. They are better than common sense. They're too smart for common sense. And I think an article that really captures this sort of snobby arrogance is this one from an aptly named publication from Montreal titled Cult MTL. The article reads, "The less educated you are, the more likely you are to have a positive opinion of pure Polyev." And there's so many liberal people who will read this article and crow with the fact that they're not so undereducated to support the Conservative Party. The Conservative Party's for foolish, dumb people. And no. Just having a degree does not actually mean you're smart. I don't even think I have to say that. It's so obvious. Having a degree just means that you have the degree. You've jumped through the hoops to get that degree, and now you have it. I have seen so many people in different programs that I've taken at university. I have a bachelor degree and a master's degree, and I would not trust a lot of the people in my master's degree program to run the government because they have very wacky ideas from being in academia for so long. The person who has started a business by themselves and only has a high school diploma is miles smarter than the PhD who studies gender. Having common sense is a fairly intellectual thing to possess, and so many people who go to university to get degrees in nothing are not exactly hyper intelligent people. They are educated. They have been educated into a specific ideology or set of factual information about a subject, but that doesn't mean that those skills or that sort of way of thinking about things translates to good ideas in the real world. Like, STEM degrees definitely make you smart in the specific things that you study. Like, I'm never going to have some guy who's really good at computer science come and tell me how economics works, because I just don't think he really has any clue about it unless he can prove he has like common sense knowledge about how the economy works. But in my master's program, I'm not even kidding, day one, I had someone get mad at me for saying that we should maybe arrest homeless drug addicts and make sure that they forcibly detox so that they can actually live more productive lives. And I said that, if you ever look at a homeless person on the street, I'm not trying to be rude or anything, but it's just true that if you follow them around for the entire day, you'd probably find them committing 5 to 6 crimes. And by enforcing those crimes, by actually enforcing the law on those crimes, you could arrest them and then make sure that they actually get off drugs or push them off of drugs. Whereas a lot of this decriminalization stuff actually takes away tools for police to intervene with these people and try and get them help. Because if they can't arrest them for any of these misdemeanor crimes, well, they have to wait for them to commit a major crime to try and force them to get help, or they have to let them sit there. But I had someone in this program, day one, say that I was being like a horrible person and I'm stigmatizing homelessness. And the first step to ending homelessness is to destigmatize the problem. Like, okay, good job, lady. Yeah, we need to go over to people's encampments and lay brochures in front of their tents and say, it's okay that you're on drugs, you're like smoking crack on the streets. Just know that I do not hold it against you, and here's a pamphlet for some sort of clinic you can go to. You gotta be overeducated to believe in such stupid things as that a problem needs to be destigmatized before that we can actually deal with it. Ugh, goodness. But I want to dive into the actual stats that article from Cult MTL went over. It's from Angus Reid. And yes, it actually is true that if you have more education, you're more likely to vote for the Liberals or the NDP. Doesn't mean that you're actually smart for voting for them. It just means that you have a degree and you happen to be voting for a dumb party. But it shows people who have high school education have are 24% very favorable of pure Polyev, and 19% somewhat favorable, with 16% somewhat unfavorable, and 29% very unfavorable. And then when you get up to people with university degrees, 13% are very in favor of pure Polyev, 18% somewhat, 18% somewhat disfavorable, and 43% very unfavorable view of pure Polyev. And to that, I say, who cares? It doesn't actually mean anything. Again, like I've said before, just because you have a PhD doesn't mean you actually understand how the economy works. I trust someone who actually started their own business far more than I trust someone with an arts PhD who's going to tell me that we need to put caps on rent to lower the cost of housing, as if just price fixing has ever actually solved a problem in the short term. But these people who have master's degrees are actually very disproportionately likely to vote for the Liberals and the NDP, who approach a problem like high prices and just look at it and say, well, why can't we just mandate the prices be lower? They actually think that rent control is a good policy because these people have no historical knowledge. They do not have the common sense view of history of knowing that when price fixing occurred in the 70s, it caused the supply of those goods to go away. So while yes, you could buy it for an affordable price if you were one of the lucky people to find an apartment for rent or for different products that were available at the pricks. Ugh, oh my goodness, I am falling over myself. You're lucky if you can find the product at the fixed price, but if you can't, you don't get the thing. And this is where so many on the left believe that their ideas are more intellectual because they are, their policy papers are so long and nuanced. But if the idea is bad, who cares? I see people all the time on the left, and they'll mock conservative policies for being simplistic, and they'll praise a liberal policy because it's 110 pages. Look at all the detail here. If the fundamental policy sucks, who cares? I do not read policies in detail if on the first paragraph the entire thing is stupid. Because what is it going to not be stupid once I get to page 110 where I'm just reading detail about the stupid policy? There are so many people who trick themselves. It's the very wonkish mentality that, hard thinking about policy leads to good solutions. Not always. Oftentimes, the common sense, simple solution is the best. This is where you get leftists in the media saying, Pure Polyev has no plan. All he wants to do is cut things, get rid of the carbon tax, and all this stuff. Yeah, that's actually what will make the country better. Reducing immigration, cutting the carbon tax, cutting income taxes, cutting regulations, and reducing the size of government is exactly what we need. Well, he's not proposing anything. He's just proposing to get rid of stuff. Yeah, it's because it's what needs to be done to solve the problem. It's not that we don't have enough government programs to gird up the economy to get us onto new heights of prosperity. It's the government is actually holding down people's prosperity and trying to redistribute the gains of other individuals to people who are less well off to pretend that they're actually helping people when they're usually making people who are also less well off even worse off just to help one person. It is, again, the idea that you are going to rob Paul to help Bill. It is a foolish idea, but if you have a master's degree, you think it's fantastic because it feels so intricate and it feels so caring that we're taking money from this rich, terrible person and handing it to this virtuous person who doesn't have as much income. It's a very intellectually satisfying solution if you've been in university for 8 to 12 years. But if you actually know how things work, if you know the market on an intimate level, having been a business owner or having been a contractor or being a real person who works in the economy, not just someone who intellectualizes about the economy, you know that actually getting the government out of the way is what is going to enable success. But anyways, that's my rant on this really stupid mentality on the left of thinking that the liberals and the NDP are intellectual. I just want to quickly plug the fact that I, Wyatt Claypool, am running for the Calgary Signal Hill Conservative Party nomination. If you live in this riding, please buy a membership and vote for me. This is what the riding boundaries look like. Go check out my website, wyattclaypool.com. If you previously lived in Bowness and you think you live in my riding, you don't anymore because in April the riding boundaries are changing, so you'll be out. And if you live in Curry Barracks, Ross, Caro, or Lincoln Park, you will then also be in my riding. So buy a membership or contact someone you know who lives in the riding. Get them to buy a membership. And also you can contribute to the National Telegraph and myself's legal fund. We have this billionaire developer suing us over nonsense. It's a defamation case where he has not proven any evidence of defamation, and he's just mad that one of our guest writers referenced a long investigative article about him from the Globe and Mail. He evidently never sued the Globe and Mail because he knew he'd get smashed in court, but he thought if he sued a 21-year-old, I was 21 when this whole thing started, if he sued a 21-year-old, maybe he could get a false apology and pretend everything negative ever said about him is actually false because, look, I have a piece of paper showing that this person apologized. We don't apologize for nonsense at the National Telegraph, so we're $26,000 deep in defending ourselves. If you can contribute anything to the legal fund, it really helps us out. Give Send Go link is in the description below. Have a great one, everybody.